The stars above Earth, with an unnatural light at evening. 5,000 alien warships had arrived without warning, blocking out entire constellations. Their hulls stretched for kilometers, made of materials that seemed to drink in starlight and reflect nothing back. For 3 days, they had been silent. Then the message came. Corporal Deho sat in the analysis room deep beneath Sol, his eyes fixed on the translated text scrolling across his screen. The words were simple, but their meaning was devastating. The Galactic Council had spoken, and they were not interested in friendship. Submit to our authority. Abandon 80% of your colonies. Accept permanent limits on your technology. You have 30 solar cycles to comply. Refuse, and your species ends. Around him, other analysts worked in frantic silence. Some were crying. Others sat frozen, unable to process what they were reading. Dahi forced himself to breathe slowly. Panic would not help. Panic never helped. Admiral Hyjin stood in the command center 16 floors above, watching the same message on the main display. Her face remained calm, but her hands were clenched behind her back. She had spent 40 years in the military, fighting pirates and rebels, keeping Earth's colonies safe. Now she faced something that made those threats look like children's games. Options, she said quietly. The officers around her exchanged glances. Finally, her second-in-command spoke. We can't win, Admiral. Their smallest ships have more firepower than our entire fleet. If we fight, we die. Then we don't fight, Hyjin replied. We negotiate. We buy time. We learn everything we can about them while we smile and bow. She turned to face her crew. Send a message. Tell them we wish to discuss their terms. Be polite, be cooperative, and start analyzing every bit of data we have on those ships. Across the city, Dr. Yoon Seo worked in her laboratory, surrounded by pieces of alien technology that human ships had recovered over the past decade. Most of it was junk, debris from old battles between species humanity had never met. But some pieces were different. Some pieces had markings that matched the symbols on the Council ships now orbiting Earth. She held up a small device, no bigger than her thumb. It had been found floating near one of humanity's outer colonies, seemingly abandoned. For months she had been studying it, trying to understand its purpose. Now, as she looked at it under her scanner, something strange happened. The device flickered. Just for a moment, its surface rippled like water. Yoon Seo set it down carefully and backed away. The device had never done that before. She checked her instruments. Everything was normal. She looked at the device again. It sat there, inert and lifeless, exactly as it had been for months. Had she imagined it? Captain Ji Woo received his orders an hour after the Council's message arrived. He was to take his team off-world, moving quietly through the outer colonies, gathering intelligence. If war came, Earth would need to know everything about the enemy. His ship, a small stealth vessel called the Silent Arrow, launched from a hidden facility in the Pacific Ocean. Where are we going, Captain? His pilot asked. Everywhere, Ji Woo replied. The Council has been watching us for years. That means they have outposts, observation stations, listening posts. We find them. We learn what they know about us. And maybe we learn what they don't want us to know about them. The days passed slowly. Earth's leaders met with Council representatives in neutral space stations. The aliens were courteous, but firm. They had rules, they explained. The galaxy had an order. Young species like humanity always thought they were special, that they could do whatever they pleased. But there were older races, wiser races, who knew better. Humanity would learn to obey, or humanity would cease to exist. Deho watched every second of the negotiations, studying the aliens' body language, their word choices, their patterns of speech. Something bothered him. It took him 3 days to figure out what. "They're afraid," he said suddenly. His supervisor looked up. "What?" "The council. They're afraid of us." Dai-Ho pulled up a series of recordings. Look at how they phrase things. They don't say, "You must obey because we are stronger." They say, "You must obey because it is the law, because this is how things are done." That's not confidence. That's desperation. You think they're bluffing? No. Dai-Ho shook his head. They're definitely powerful enough to destroy us. But something about us scares them. They're not here to conquer. They're here to contain. On the 22nd cycle, the Council demonstrated their power. They targeted a small moon in the outer system, an airless rock that no one had ever bothered to colonize. Their weapons fired once. The moon simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was only empty space. The message was clear. This would be Earth's fate if humanity refused to comply. Hai-Jin called an emergency meeting of her senior staff. "We're running out of time." What have we learned? The reports were not encouraging. The Council ships used technology centuries beyond humanity's understanding. Their shields could stop anything humanity could throw at them. Their weapons could destroy planets. Even if every human ship attacked at once, they would lose. But Dai-Ho added quietly, "They're positioned wrong." Everyone turned to look at him. "Explain," Hai-Jin ordered. "Their fleet formation. It's defensive. They've arranged their ships to protect themselves, not to attack us. And their weapons are all pointed outward, away from Earth, like they're watching for something else." He brought up a tactical display. "They say they're here to force us to submit, but they're acting like they're expecting an attack from somewhere else." Hai-Jin studied the display. Dai-Ho was right. The Council fleet was positioned like a shield, not a sword. What are they protecting themselves from? No one had an answer. On the 28th cycle, 2 days before the deadline, Dr. Yoon Se-Oh was running tests on the alien device when every alarm in her laboratory screamed at once. The device was glowing, pulsing with energy that her instruments couldn't measure. She reached for the emergency containment switch, but before she could activate it, the device went dark. Not just dark, but gone. It had evaporated, leaving nothing behind but a faint smell of ozone dot. She stood there, staring at the empty spot where it had been, her mind racing. Then her phone rang. It was the command center, and they were shouting. The Council fleet was gone, not destroyed, not retreating, simply gone. 5,000 massive warships had vanished from Earth's orbit in the space between one sensor sweep and the next. No energy signatures, no distortion fields, no trace of any kind. They had been there, and now they were not. Humanity held its breath, waiting for the attack, waiting for some trick to reveal itself. But nothing came. The galaxy fell silent, and in that silence, Dai-Ho pulled up his analysis programs and began to search for patterns in the impossible. The silence lasted for 17 hours before humanity dared to believe it was real. Admiral Hai-Jin ordered every sensor platform in human space to maximum sensitivity. Every telescope pointed at the place where the Council fleet had been. Every listening station strained to detect any signal, any whisper, anything that might explain what had happened. They found nothing. The Council fleet had simply stopped existing. Dai-Ho did not sleep for 3 days. He reviewed every second of sensor data from the moment of the disappearance, searching for something everyone else had missed. His eyes burned. His hands shook from too much coffee and too little food. But he kept working because the alternative was admitting that humanity understood nothing about what had just saved them. "There has to be a pattern," he muttered, scrolling through energy readings for the 1,000th time. "Nothing just disappears. Physics doesn't allow it. Conservation of mass and energy. You can't just delete 5,000 ships from reality. His supervisor brought him more coffee. Maybe you're thinking about this wrong. Maybe they jumped away using some kind of faster-than-light drive we don't understand. Then we'd see the entry signature. Every FTL system produces some kind of detectable event. Tachyon burst, gravitational ripple something. Daiho rubbed his eyes. This is different. Look at the readings exactly 1 second before they vanished. Everything is normal. Then look at the readings exactly 1 second after. Also normal. There's no transition. No process. Just a before and after, with nothing in between. Across the planet, Dr. Yoon Seo was having similar thoughts. She had reported the device's disappearance immediately, and now a team of investigators was tearing her laboratory apart, looking for any trace of where it had gone. They found nothing. The molecular sensors showed no residue, no atomic traces, nothing that indicated the device had ever been there at all. It's like it was edited out, she told the lead investigator. Not destroyed, not transported, just removed from reality. The investigator frowned. That's not scientifically possible. I know, but it's what happened. Captain Ji Woo was 2 weeks away from Earth when the Council fleet vanished. His ship had been investigating an asteroid field where long-range sensors had detected unusual energy readings. What he found there made his blood run cold. The asteroid field was not natural. It was the remains of something massive, something that had been deliberately broken apart. And scattered among the rocks were pieces of technology that matched the Council's designs. But these pieces were old, not decades old, not centuries old. These fragments had been floating in space for thousands of years. Someone destroyed a Council fleet before, Ji Woo said quietly. A long time ago. And they left the wreckage here as a warning. His second-in-command studied the debris on the scanner. A warning to who? Maybe to everyone. Maybe to the Council themselves. As the first week passed, other species began to emerge from hiding. Ships from dozens of civilizations that humanity had never encountered started broadcasting messages. They were cautious at first, testing to see if the galaxy was truly safe. Then they grew bolder. The messages all said similar things. The Council had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They had crushed any species that grew too powerful, too independent, too ambitious. They had destroyed entire civilizations that refused to submit. And they had done it all while claiming they were maintaining peace and order. We lived in fear. One alien captain transmitted to Earth. We made our ships small and weak so they would not notice us. We hid our colonies in places they thought worthless. We pretended to be less than we were. And now they are gone, and we do not understand why. Humanity did not understand either. But humanity had been threatened by the Council right before they vanished, and the entire galaxy was starting to notice that connection. Daiho finally found something on the 8th day. It was not much, just a tiny anomaly in the gravitational sensors, so small that the automatic systems had flagged it as instrument noise. But it was there, exactly at the moment of the disappearance. Not coming from where the Council fleet had been. Coming from Earth's moon. He brought the data to Admiral Haijin immediately. She studied it in silence for a long time. The moon, she said finally. Something on our moon made the Council fleet disappear. Or something in it, Daiho replied. I checked the historical geological surveys. There's a mass concentration deep under the lunar surface that has never been properly explained. It's been there as long as we've had sensors capable of detecting it. We always assumed it was a natural formation, maybe an iron core or a dense mineral deposit. Send a team, Haijin ordered. Right now. I want to know what's under that moon. Dr. Yoon Seo volunteered to go. She took the fastest shuttle available and reached the lunar surface in 6 hours. The landing site was on the far side of the moon, in a crater that had never been explored by human missions. As her shuttle descended, her instruments began to pick up strange readings. Energy signatures that appeared and disappeared. Gravitational fluctuations that made no sense. The excavation took 3 days. Yoon Seo's team used deep scanning equipment to map the structure beneath the surface before they started digging. What they found was impossible. Buried 3 kilometers below the lunar surface was a machine. It was massive, larger than any building on Earth, made from materials that predated the solar system itself. And it was still active. It's been here for billions of years, Yoon Seo transmitted back to Earth, her voice shaking. Whoever built this put it here before humans evolved. Before dinosaurs. Maybe before life on Earth even began. Captain Ji Woo's ship received new orders. He was to travel to the nearest Council homeworld and investigate. The journey took 5 days at maximum FTL speed. What he found when he arrived made him wish he had never gone. The planet was beautiful. Vast cities spread across 3 continents, connected by transportation systems that looked organic rather than mechanical. Towering structures that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built. And no one, no people, no movement, no life at all. Chi Woo led a landing team into the largest city. They walked through streets designed for beings twice human height. They entered buildings filled with furniture and equipment that looked recently used. They found food in storage that had not yet spoiled. But they found no bodies. No signs of violence. No indication of where everyone had gone. It's like they just stopped existing, one of his team members whispered. Just like their fleet. In the central government building, they found a message. It was carved into a wall, written in the Council's language. Ji Woo's translator took several minutes to process it. The inheritors have been judged. Back on the moon, Dr. Yoon Seo had managed to access part of the ancient machine's interface. The technology was so far beyond human understanding that she could barely comprehend what she was looking at. But one thing was clear. The machine had a purpose. It had a function. And it had activated itself 28 cycles ago, exactly when the Council had issued their ultimatum to Earth. It's a weapon, she transmitted to Admiral Hai-Jin. Not a normal weapon. Something that works on principles we don't understand. And it didn't destroy the Council. It erased them. It removed them from existence as completely as if they had never been born. Why? Hai-Jin demanded. Why would something do that? Yoon Seo looked at the readouts, at the incomprehensible symbols scrolling across her screen. I think it was protecting us. I think it was protecting Earth. And I think it's been waiting here for billions of years for exactly this moment. The galaxy fell silent again, but this time the silence was not peaceful. It was the silence of every civilization looking at humanity and wondering what they had done. What weapon did they possess? What power did they command? And most importantly, would they use it again? The neutral station Nexus Point had been built a century ago by 5 different species as a place for diplomatic meetings. Now it was filled with representatives from 24 civilizations, all demanding answers from the same people. The human delegation, Admiral Hai-Jin, stood at the center of the assembly chamber, surrounded by aliens of every imaginable shape and size. Some were humanoid. Some were crystalline structures that communicated through light. Some existed partially in dimensions humans could not perceive. All of them were angry. You destroyed the Council, a tall reptilian being hissed. Your species threatened them, and they disappeared. Now you claim innocence, but we are not fools. Hai-Jin kept her voice calm. We did not destroy the Council. We barely understood what was happening. We were as surprised as everyone else when they vanished. Lies, another alien said, this one resembling a floating mass of tentacles. The Council ruled for millions of years. They had technology beyond anything else in the galaxy. The only way they could have been defeated is if you had something even more powerful. Something you are not telling us about. We are telling you everything we know, Hyjin replied. We found a machine buried under Earth's moon. We did not build it. We did not know it was there. We certainly did not activate it. Whatever happened to the Council, it was not our doing. Then whose doing was it? Demanded a being that looked like living stone. Who built this machine? Why was it protecting your world? Those were excellent questions. Questions that Dae-ho and a team of scientists from multiple species were trying to answer, while the politicians argued that the machine under the moon was more complex than anything humanity had ever encountered. Dr. Yoon Seo had spent weeks studying it, barely eating or sleeping, trying to understand even the basics of how it functioned. What she had learned was terrifying. It's a causality weapon, she explained to Dae-ho, pointing at her research data. It doesn't just destroy things. It makes them never have existed. Look at these readings. The energy signature matches quantum fluctuations in the cosmic background radiation. The machine is reaching backward through time and erasing its targets from history itself. Dae-ho stared at the data. That's impossible. You can't change the past. Causality doesn't work that way. Apparently it does if you have enough power and the right technology. Yoon Seo pulled up another display. I've been comparing current observations of the galaxy with archived data from before the disappearance. Everything matches perfectly, except for one thing. No one can find any recent evidence that the Council existed. Their ships, their stations, their colonies, all gone. But the strange part is that people still remember them. So it's not a perfect erasure? No, memories remain. Historical records remain. But the physical evidence is vanishing, being retroactively edited out of reality. She looked exhausted. Whoever built this thing understood physics on a level we can't even imagine. Captain Ji Woo had been traveling from world to world, investigating every location where the Council had maintained a presence. The pattern was always the same. Empty cities, abandoned stations, no bodies, no signs of struggle, just absence where presence used to be. On his 7th investigation, he found something different. An old Council archive facility on the edge of explored space. Unlike the other locations, this one was not empty. It was full of data, massive libraries of information stored in formats that took his ship's computer days to translate. What he found in those archives changed everything. The Council knew, he transmitted back to Earth. They knew about the weapon on our moon. They put it there. Admiral Hyjin nearly dropped her communication device. What? 5 billion years ago, before Earth even formed, the Council was not the dominant power in this region of space. Someone else was. The archives call them the architects. They were more advanced than anything we can imagine. And they built weapons. Weapons designed to enforce a very specific kind of galactic order. Ji Woo sent the data files. Dae-ho and Yoon Seo reviewed them immediately, translating as fast as they could. The story that emerged was incredible. The architects had believed that intelligent species tended to follow certain patterns. Most civilizations, when they gained enough power, became aggressive. They conquered. They exploited. They destroyed other species that got in their way. This was natural, the architects observed, but it was also unsustainable. Eventually, such civilizations either destroyed themselves or were destroyed by others. But occasionally, very rarely, a species developed differently. These rare civilizations valued cooperation over conquest. They sought to understand rather than dominate. They had power but chose not to abuse it. The architects called these species the inheritors because they believed such species deserved to inherit the galaxy. The causality weapons were designed to enforce this belief. They were placed on worlds where life was just beginning to evolve. They would lie dormant for billions of years, waiting, watching. And when the species on that world finally became spacefaring and encountered other civilizations, the weapon would activate. It would observe how the species behaved, how they reacted to threats, how they used whatever power they possessed. And if a species tried to threaten potential inheritors, tried to destroy them before they could reach their full potential, the weapon would erase the threat from existence. The Council put the weapon on Earth when our solar system was forming, Yuncio said quietly. They knew that eventually a species might evolve here, a species that could become inheritors, and they wanted to protect that possibility. But then, why did they threaten us? Daiho asked. Captain Ji Woo had found that answer too. It was a test, the final test. The weapon doesn't just protect the inheritors from external threats. It also judges whether they truly deserve to inherit. The Council came to Earth and threatened us, not because they wanted to conquer us, but because they needed to see how we would respond. Respond how? Admiral Hai Jin demanded. If we had surrendered immediately, showing that we valued survival over all else, the weapon would have done nothing. If we had attacked them despite being hopelessly outmatched, showing that we were aggressive and reckless, the weapon would have done nothing. But we did neither. We prepared to defend ourselves while seeking diplomatic solutions. We showed both strength and wisdom. That's what triggered the weapon. The implications were staggering. Humanity had passed a test they did not know they were taking. And the price of passing had been the extinction of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. What have we done? Yoon Seo whispered back at Nexus Point. The other species were not interested in ancient history. They wanted to know what would happen next. You have this weapon, the reptilian being said to Admiral Hai Jin. This weapon that can erase civilizations from existence. What will you do with it? Before Hai Jin could answer, every screen in the assembly chamber lit up with the same message. It was broadcasting from the moon, from the weapon itself. New Council identified. Compliance testing begins. The chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens screamed at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded that humanity be destroyed before they could use the weapon. Others begged for mercy. A few simply fled, returning to their ships and jumping away as fast as their engines could carry them. Admiral Ki Jin stood in the center of the chaos and realized that everything had just gotten much worse. Humanity had exactly 6 hours to decide the fate of the galaxy. That was how long it took for the weapon's message to reach every major civilization. New Council identified. Compliance testing begins. Simple words that changed everything. Admiral Hai Jin stood in the command center, watching displays that showed the entire galaxy reacting to the news. Some species were evacuating their homeworlds. Others were mobilizing their militaries. 3 major civilizations had already declared that they would destroy Earth before humanity could use the weapon against them. We need to speak, Hai Jin said. Get me every leader, every representative, everyone with any authority. Tell them we did not ask for this. Tell them we are as frightened as they are. Tell them we need to work together. But fear made people irrational. Fear made them dangerous. Daiho worked with analysts from multiple species, trying to understand what the weapon meant by compliance testing. The ancient archive that Captain Ji Woo had found contained some clues. The architects had believed that any species advanced enough to threaten others must prove they could govern wisely. The testing period would last several cycles. During that time, the weapon would observe the new council. It would watch how they treated other species, how they used their power, how they responded to conflict, and if we fail the test. An alien analyst asked. Daiho looked at the data. The weapon erases us from existence, just like it did to the previous council. And then it waits for another species to evolve on Earth and tries again. How long would that take? Millions of years. Dr. Yunseo had not left the moon since the weapon activated. She stood in the excavation chamber, surrounded by equipment that monitored the massive machine beneath her feet. The weapon was doing something, drawing power from sources she could not identify, scanning the galaxy with sensors that operated on principles physics had not discovered yet. And somehow, impossibly, it was aware of her. She felt it. A presence in her mind, vast and alien and old beyond comprehension. Not hostile, not friendly, simply observing, measuring, judging. I know you can hear me, she said aloud. I know you are watching. Please, we never asked for this. We do not want to be the council. We do not want this responsibility. The presence did not respond with words. Instead, images flooded her mind. She saw the architects, beings of pure energy who had evolved beyond the need for physical form. She saw them building the weapons, scattering them across the galaxy, hoping that someday the right species would emerge. She saw the previous council taking the test millions of years ago, passing it, accepting the burden of maintaining galactic order. She saw them grow old and tired and desperate, hoping that finally a successor would appear so they could rest. And she saw what the weapon would do if humanity refused this role. It would not just erase them. It would leave the galaxy without any guardian, without any force to prevent the strong from crushing the weak. Chaos would return. War would spread across the stars. Billions would die. That's not fair, Yunzio whispered. You cannot force us to choose between accepting ultimate power or letting the galaxy burn. The presence showed her one more image. A choice the architects themselves had made. A decision that haunted them even as they transcended physical existence. They had tried to force order on the galaxy through their own power. They had failed. They had learned that true order could only come from species choosing to cooperate, not from weapons forcing compliance. But they had built the weapons anyway, hoping that the right species would find a way to use them wisely. Find a way, Yunseo said. That is all you are telling me. Find a way or everyone suffers. Captain Ji Woo had been ordered to take his ship to the edge of human space and monitor for threats. What he found was worse than anyone had imagined. 40 different species had formed an alliance. They had pooled their military forces into the largest war fleet ever assembled. And they were coming to Earth. They mean to destroy us, his tactical officer reported. Combined strength of over 15,000 ships. More firepower than the Council fleet had. Can we stop them? Not conventionally. But we have the weapon. Ji Woo felt sick. Alert Earth Command. Tell them we have incoming hostiles. And tell them that if we use the weapon to defend ourselves, we prove we are exactly what they fear we are. The Allied fleet sent a message ahead of them. It was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every language. Humanity has possession of a weapon that threatens all life in the galaxy. This cannot be allowed. We do not seek your extinction. Surrender the weapon. Allow us to destroy it. Do this, and we will leave in peace. Refuse, and we will do whatever necessary to ensure our own survival. Admiral Haijin read the message 3 times. She understood their fear. In their position, she might make the same choice. But she also knew what they did not. The weapon could not be surrendered. It could not be destroyed. It was woven into the fabric of space-time itself, operating on principles that made it as permanent as the laws of physics. Get me a communication channel to the fleet, she ordered. All of them. Every ship, every commander, every species. When the channel opened, she spoke simply and directly. I am Admiral Hygiene of Earth. I understand your fear. I share it. We did not choose to have this weapon. We did not activate it. We did not ask to become what you fear. Be. But here we are, and we must deal with reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. She paused, letting the translation systems catch up. The weapon cannot be given to you. It cannot be destroyed. It is part of this solar system in ways we do not fully understand. But that does not mean we must use it. That does not mean we must become tyrants. There is another option. We can work together. All of us. Every species in this galaxy. We can create a true council, not one species ruling the others, but all species governing together. The reply came from the fleet commander, a being from a species humans had never encountered. Empty words. The previous council said similar things when they first took power. Then they became exactly what we are trying to prevent. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is a law as certain as gravity. Then watch us, Hygiene replied. Judge us by our actions. Give us a chance to prove we are different. We gave the council millions of years. They failed. We will not make that mistake again. The fleet continued toward Earth, 3 days away. 2 days, 1 day. Humanity prepared to die, not because they wanted to fight, but because they had no other choice. The weapon had made it clear that it would defend Earth, whether humanity wanted it to or not. Deho found something in his final hours of analysis. A small detail in the weapon's programming that everyone had missed. The compliance testing did not just measure how humanity treated others. It also measured how humanity responded to the test itself. The weapon wanted to see if humanity would accept ultimate power without question, or if they would seek another way. It's looking for someone to break the pattern. Deho explained to Hygiene over the communication link. The architects created these weapons because they could not figure out how to bring order to the galaxy without force. They are hoping someone else will find a better solution. What solution? Hygiene demanded. We have tried diplomacy. We have offered cooperation. We have done everything except give up the weapon, which we cannot do. What else is there? I do not know, Deho admitted. But I think Dr. Yunseo might. On the moon, Yunseo had made a decision. She sat in front of the weapon's interface, her hands shaking as she activated the neural link. The presence flooded into her mind again, vast and overwhelming. But this time she did not pull away. She opened herself to it completely, letting it see everything she was. Her fears, her hopes, her absolute certainty that there had to be a better way. Show me, she thought at the presence. Show me how to change the rules. The weapon responded. And in that moment, as the Allied fleet entered Earth's solar system and prepared to fire, Yunseo understood what had to be done. The Allied fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 15,000 ships, representing 40 different species, all united by fear. Their weapons were charged. Their shields were active. They had come to destroy Earth's moon, and the weapon buried beneath it, even if it meant sacrificing their own forces in the process. Admiral Hygiene watched them arrive on the tactical display. Around her, the command center was silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Earth's defensive fleet, barely 300 ships, had positioned themselves between the planet and the incoming armada. It was a symbolic gesture. They could not win this battle, but they would not surrender without standing firm. Open all channels, Hygiene ordered. I want every ship in that fleet to hear this. The communication officer nodded. Channels open, Admiral. Hygiene took a breath. This might be the last thing she ever said. She wanted to make it count. To all ships of the Allied fleet, this is Admiral Hai Jin. I know you believe you are here to save the galaxy from a terrible threat. I know you think humanity will become the next tyrant, using the weapon on the moon to enforce our will on everyone else. I understand your fear because I feel it too. She paused, watching the fleet continue its approach. They had not fired yet. They were listening. That was something. But you are wrong about one thing. You believe we want this power. You believe we will fight to keep it. You are wrong. We reject it. We reject the role of counsel. We reject the burden of ruling the galaxy. We refuse to be what you fear. The reply came from the fleet's commander, broadcast on the same open channel. Words. The previous council said the same things. We will not be fooled again. If you truly reject the weapon's power, then stand aside and let us destroy it. We cannot, Hai Jin replied. The weapon is not a machine that can be turned off or blown up. It is woven into reality itself. But we have found another way. On the moon, Dr. Yoon Seo sat in the neural interface. Her consciousness merged with the ancient weapon. She could feel its vast intelligence, its patient observation, its hope that finally, after billions of years, a species would understand what the architects had never figured out. Power could not bring peace. Fear could not create order. There had to be a different path. I see it now, she whispered, though whether she spoke aloud or directly to the weapon's consciousness, she could not tell. The architects were wrong. Not about everything, but about one crucial thing. They thought the galaxy needed guardians, watchers with ultimate power to prevent chaos. But what the galaxy really needs is not someone to rule it. It needs everyone to have a voice. The weapon understood. She felt its agreement, its relief that finally someone had spoken the truth it had been designed to test for. The compliance testing had never been about whether humanity would be good rulers. It had been about whether humanity would realize that no one should rule at all. Can you change? Yoon Seo asked the weapon. Can you transform from something that enforces order into something that encouraged cooperation? The weapon's response flooded through her mind. Yes, but it required a sacrifice. The neural interface was more than just a communication system. It was a bridge. Someone had to serve as the permanent connection between the weapon and the species it was meant to protect. Someone had to give up their individual existence to become part of something larger. Yoon Seo did not hesitate. Then take me. Use me. Change the weapon into what it should have been from the beginning. Captain Ji Woo was halfway back to Earth when his sensors detected massive energy readings from the moon. Not the destructive power of the weapon preparing to fire. Something different. Something that made his instruments scream with readings they were not designed to measure. What is happening? His pilot demanded. The weapon is changing, Ji Woo said, staring at the data. It is transforming into something new. The Allied fleet saw it too. Their weapons were aimed at Earth, ready to fire, when the energy signature from the moon shifted. The weapon's presence, the vast threatening power that had terrified the entire galaxy, suddenly felt different. Not gone, not weaker, but fundamentally altered in ways that defied explanation. Dai Ho was monitoring the weapon's status from Earth when the transformation completed. What he saw made no sense according to any physics he understood, but the readings were clear. The weapon had reconfigured itself. Instead of a device designed to erase civilizations from existence, it had become something new. A communication system, a network, a way for every species in the galaxy to be connected, to share information, to make decisions together. It's not a weapon anymore, he transmitted to Admiral Hai Jin. It's a tool for cooperation. And Dr. Yoon Seo is part of it now. Her consciousness has merged with the system. She is the bridge between all species. Admiral Hai Jin felt her heart sink. Yoon Seo had sacrificed herself, but perhaps she had also saved everyone. Send that information to the fleet. Let them verify it themselves. The fleet's sensors confirmed what Earth's analysts had discovered. The weapon was gone. In its place was a network that connected to every inhabited world in the galaxy, offering a way for species to communicate instantaneously, to share knowledge, to vote on decisions that affected them all. It was not a government. It was not a council of rulers. It was something humanity had a word for, but had never managed to implement on a galactic scale. Democracy. The fleet commander's voice came over the channel again, but this time it sounded uncertain. How do we know this is not a trick? How do we know this network is not another way for you to control us? You don't, Admiral Hai-Jin admitted. You will have to trust us, just as we are trusting you not to destroy us right now. But I can tell you this. We did not create this network. Dr. Yoon Seo did, with the help of the ancient weapon, and she gave up her life to make it possible. If that is not proof of our intentions, I do not know what would be. For a long moment, nothing happened. The fleet held position. Earth's ships waited. The galaxy held its breath. Then the fleet's weapons powered down. We will verify this network, the commander said. We will test it. We will watch how humanity uses it. And if you betray this trust, if you prove to be what we feared, we will find a way to stop you, no matter what it costs. That's all we ask, Hai-Jin replied. A chance to prove ourselves. The fleet turned and began to disperse, ships returning to their homeworlds. But they did not leave entirely. A delegation stayed behind, representatives from each of the 40 species. Determined to work with humanity to understand the new network and establish protocols for its use, Daeho was the first to successfully connect to the network. He felt Yoon Seo's presence there, not as an individual, but as something distributed, aware of everything happening on the network simultaneously. She could not speak directly anymore, but she could guide. She could facilitate. She could help species understand each other in ways that had never been possible before. Are you still you? He asked, not knowing if she could hear or answer. The reply came not as words, but as a feeling. Yes and no. She was Yoon Seo, but she was also more. She was the network. She was the connection between all species. She had become what the architects had failed to create, a true bridge between different forms of life. Captain Ji Woo landed on Earth 3 days after the fleet's departure. He went immediately to the command center, where Admiral Hai-Jin was coordinating with the alien delegates. She looked exhausted, but satisfied. We did it, Ji Woo said. We found the third option. Not submission, not domination. Something new. Yoon Seo found it, Hai-Jin corrected. We just had to be willing to try. Over the following months, the network grew. Species that had hidden from the previous council emerged and joined. Knowledge was shared. Disputes were mediated. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still species that refused to participate. But it was better than what had come before. Earth became the home of the network's central node, not because humanity ruled it, but because that was where Yoon Seo had made the transformation. Delegates from hundreds of species came to work in the new assembly hall, built near the lunar excavation site. Daeho served as one of the coordinators, helping species learn to use the network effectively. Admiral Hai-Jin retired from the military, but stayed on as an advisor, using her experience to help navigate the complex politics of a truly galactic society. Captain Ji Woo led exploration missions, traveling to distant parts of the galaxy, inviting new species to join the network. He found dozens of civilizations that had been suppressed by the previous council, forced to remain primitive or isolated. Now they had a choice. Now they had a voice. 3 years after the Council's disappearance, a ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from over 200 species gathered to dedicate a monument at the site where the weapon had once threatened them all. The structure was simple, a pillar of polished stone with inscriptions in every known language. The inscription read, "Here stood the power to rule all. Here we chose to serve instead." Admiral Hai-Jin stood before the monument, giving a speech that was broadcast across the network to every connected world. The architects believed the galaxy needed guardians. The previous council believed they were those guardians. Both were partially right and completely wrong. The galaxy does not need guardians. It needs participants. It needs every species contributing their wisdom, their perspective, their unique understanding of existence. She paused, looking up at the monument. Dr. Yoon Seo understood this. She gave up her individual existence so that all of us could exist together. We honor her sacrifice by using this network not to impose our will on others, but to learn from each other, to grow together, to face the challenges of existence as partners, not as rulers and subjects. Through the network, billions of beings across hundreds of worlds felt Yoon Seo's presence acknowledge the words. She could not speak, but everyone understood her response. This was what she had hoped for. This was why her sacrifice had been worth it. Dae-ho stood near the monument, thinking about the pattern he had recognized so long ago. The council had been afraid. Afraid of humanity, afraid of change, afraid of losing control. That fear had led to their ultimatum, which had triggered the weapon, which had erased them from existence. But fear had also brought the Allied fleet to Earth, ready to destroy humanity to prevent them from becoming the next tyrant. The pattern could have repeated forever. Fear leading to threats, leading to conflict, leading to more fear. But Yoon Seo had broken the pattern by refusing to play by the old rules. She had transformed the weapon into a tool for connection instead of destruction. She had proven that the galaxy did not have to be ruled by fear. Captain Ji-woo watched his scanner as he piloted his ship toward a new star system. Following a signal from a species, the network had not yet contacted. His mission was simple: invite them to join, explain what the network offered, and respect their choice if they refused. No threats, no demands. Just an open hand instead of a closed fist. "Do you think the architects knew?" His co-pilot asked. "Do you think they predicted this would happen?" Kai-Wu considered the question. "I think they hoped. They built a weapon that could enforce order, but they programmed it to look for someone who would reject that power. They were testing the entire galaxy, waiting to see if any species would be wise enough to find a better way. And we passed the test." "No," Ji-woo corrected. "We changed the test. We proved that the question itself was wrong. The galaxy does not need a council. It needs a conversation. And thanks to Yoon Seo, that conversation can finally happen." Back on Earth, in a quiet room overlooking the lunar excavation site, a holographic display showed the network's growth. Thousands of species connected. Millions of worlds participating. Billions of individuals sharing knowledge, art, science, philosophy. It was chaotic. It was messy. It was inefficient. And it was beautiful. Admiral Hai-Jin stood watching the display with a small smile. Humanity had been threatened with extinction, had discovered an ultimate weapon, had been given the power to rule the entire galaxy. And they had said no. They had chosen something harder, something more complex, something that required constant work and compromise and patience. They had chosen to be partners instead of rulers. And in doing so, they had earned something far more valuable than power. They had earned respect. They had earned trust. They had earned their place among the stars, not through force, but through the willingness to serve something larger than themselves. The galaxy would never be perfect. There would always be conflicts, misunderstandings, species that chose isolation or aggression. But now there was a framework for dealing with these challenges together. Now there was hope that the strong would not simply crush the weak, that different forms of life could coexist and learn from each other. And somewhere in the network, woven into its very structure, Yunzio watched over it all. She was no longer fully human, but she had not lost her humanity. She was the bridge, the connection, the living proof that sacrifice and compassion could change the fate of the entire galaxy. The monument's inscription was simple, but it contained a truth that would shape galactic civilization for millions of years to come. Power was not the answer. Service was. Understanding was. Cooperation was. These were the tools that would build a lasting peace, not through fear or force, but through the simple recognition that every species, every individual, every form of consciousness had value. Humanity had learned this lesson when they needed it most, and in learning it, they had taught it to the galaxy.